or we're talking about Mid-Ohio here for the truck race. Really quick, I will not be here, so no live shows this weekend or next weekend. I will still make videos. I will still make the PDF. I'll still make my projections, just giving you a heads up there. Let's take a look at Mid-Ohio. First off, let's kind of go back and look at the optimal lines and how these races played out for Coda and Sonoma to see if we can gain any knowledge, to see if we can explain why I like certain guys this weekend and why I don't like certain guys this weekend. Just trying to give you a refresher, trying to give you a look at how I believe this race, or how this race has a potential to play out. So just a real quick reminder, Coda had 46 laps. We actually went into triple overtime. We ended up running 75 laps at Sonoma. This weekend is 68 laps, if I'm not mistaken. When we look at the race in Mid-Ohio, it's clearly right in the middle between the two not right in the middle, but it's generally right in the middle between two races of what we've seen in terms of laps led and in terms of fast lap points. When we look at Coda, you got to remember that, as I said, it went to triple overtime. May have gone to double overtime. I don't remember. I know we had pushed it into the first overtime attempt, which was going to end in regulation, and we went back into overtime and blah, 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 whatever the case was. This is the race where they end up wrecking towards the end of the race. We have Alex Bowman ran into issues on the last lap. He goes from running third to finishing 25th. We have Per Klugerman also gets damaged. We have Kyle Busch moved out of the way. This is the race that got really dumb late in the event. But when we look at the optimal line and we look at how everything ended up shaking out when the race was said and done, we see that the Alex Bowman incident, yes, he did lose 22 positions, and his price at 10-1 certainly doesn't allow that to work. But we didn't see Alex Bowman really gain a ton of fast laps and laps led, and so we can't use that argument of, well, he took all the fast laps, he took all the laps led from this race, that's why he wasn't in the optimal line. He only got 0.9 fast laps and 0.25 laps led points. When we look at the salaries at this race, it was very much a case where we had several big name drivers in this race. We had Sheldon Creed in the 10K. We had Alex Bowman in the 10K. We had Kaz Grala at 9.9. We had a Kyle Busch race where he was $13,000. We also had missed prices of guys who, and yes, this was early in the season, so we weren't necessarily, maybe ready or justified to price them up higher, but we had Zane Smith at 9.7. We had Chandler Smith at 9.1. We had Lawless Allen at $4,800, which was a gigantic misprice. We had Tate Fogelman at 5.7. And so when we look at the optimal line, we see that Kyle Busch does not make it in the optimal line, despite the fact that he finishes third. He gets 3.15 fast lap points, 7.75 laps led points, and ends up with a total of 53.9 at $13,000. A value of 4.1. We see that he doesn't get into the optimal. But what is very interesting here is because this race got so crazy at the end, and so many people got ran off the road and moved, and even the caution that brought this out earlier, like Kaz Grala was spun out, he got stuck in the grass. We had Ekisk or Majeski bring out the yellow that would lead to the overtime restarts, and we see the final points between everybody who did make the optimal line. We had 5 out of the 6 drivers score at or over 45 points, but score less than 52 points. We have Zane Smith at 51.45 points. We have Nemechek at 51.25. We have Rhodes at 49. We have Chandler Smith at 46.25. And we have Lawless Allen at 45. Tate Fogelman then fits into the optimal line with 38 points. The total spent in this race was the total spent in the optimal line was 49.2 with $800 left over. So this is a race where, that's why I wanted to focus on Alex Bowman, being removed from even being in contention optimal, because he didn't take away a lot of the fast lap points. And we're going to see some similarities that I want to focus on Sonoma in terms of running position, in terms of guys having some place differential baked in, making the optimal line, that I think we could very easily project and see towards Mid-Ohio this weekend. But when we look at where these guys started and why these guys made the optimal line, to where they didn't really blow the socks off of the value range. Sure, Zane Smith ended with a 5.5 with a 5.3. John Nemechek actually didn't hit 5x; he hit 4.9. Ben Rhodes was 5.2. Chandler Smith was 5.1. Lawless Allen clearly a misprice at 9.4, and Tate Fogelman at 6.7x. But anyway, when we look at Zane Smith, he starts second. He's really the only guy in this range, or the only guy who made the optimal line that started in the top 10, because we see that Nemechek starts 11th. He has place differential baked in. We see that Ben Rhodes starts 13th. We see that Chandler Smith starts 12th. And so this is also a factor of how they qualify as well. We're seeing the place differential baked in these guys. Sure, Lawless Allen 24th, Tate Fogelman 31st. That's not necessarily what I want to focus on. I want to focus on the three guys who made it in this race, because I think they had a good chance of making the optimal line even without Kaz Gralla running issues, even without Parker Kligerman running issues, even without Alex Bowman running issues. We're seeing that Nemechek, Rhodes, and Smith, one, they were mispriced. But even if they were 9.6s, 9.7s, maybe all close to the $10,000, I got a feeling they end up working because they have the place differential baked in. They're guys that we expect to see running top 7 times under green, especially in a stacked field like this. At Mid-Ohio, we don't have to worry about that. And so this is how at least Coda played out, and guys that I think should probably be considered again this weekend, and guys that, and the reason I'm saying that is because, look, when we see qualifying, and because I'm not going to be doing a live show, we're going to have some guys that are starting pretty much between 13th. I would probably back that up a little bit more. I'd probably say guys starting from 16th to 8th who can and should show enough speed to be top 5 contenders at the end of the race, to be there, you know, we aren't chasing those guys for the laps led potential. Yes, that's always a bonus. Yes, it's always good if they can scrape up some fast laps, but in situations where we already have our lap leader that we like, we already have our value that we want to go to, because we're probably going to have some misprices based on where qualifying ends up shaking out. My 3 guys that I want to use in the race, or to fill out the rest of the line, are guys that are going to be built on place differential plays, and they don't necessarily have to be gigantic plays. I just want to see guys starting in the teens that can be up there, or unless we just have massive, mispricings and stuff in the 20s, then we could chase place differential there. But Coda got a bit crazy. We did end up going to overtime several times. We had a lot of restarts, and that's how that race went. And so when we look at Sonoma, another Kyle Busch race, but in terms of other guys in this race, sure, we had Ross Chastain, We had Ross Chastain in it, and we had Alex Bowman again at $10,000. We don't have to worry about any of that this weekend because it is just a classic Truck Series race. And the reason I'm going over these past races is to then really dive in and explain why or at least give backstory of why I'm so passionate or want to play certain guys. So we're almost done going over previous races here, so just bear with me. When we look at Sonoma, we see that the optimal line had Kyle Busch, Chandler Smith, Tanner Gray, Harrison Burton, Jack Wood, and Chase Purdy. Another situation here of where let's really take a look at these points. Yes, Kyle Busch scored 70.4 points, but everybody else was less than 50. Chandler Smith at 48.45, Tanner Gray at 44, Harrison Burton 42.45, Jack Wood 39, Chase Purdy 38. When we compare that with how these guys ended up scoring, and in terms of how the whole field scored, yes, Kyle Busch led the race. He basically walked away with it, took a majority, was the highest score at 70.4 points. Zane Smith was 53.45, Chandler Smith 48.45, Ross Chastain 45, Tanner Gray 44, Ty Majeski 43.45, Harrison Burton 42.45, Parker Kligerman 41, Jack Wood 39, Chase Purdy 38, Matt DiBenedetto 36, John Nemechek 35, Kaz Gralla 35, Todd Bodine 35. You kind of get the gist or the idea. We're not seeing gigantic point differences here. We're seeing a very condensed pool, and we're seeing that the optimals this year, regardless of where these guys are in price, and we're seeing that you need guys that are going to project in the 40s. We don't need outrageously high projections, but if you see a guy that is going to realistically hit mid to high 40s, I think you should lean towards playing him, regardless if the track history shows that he's going to be a good play, blah blah blah. Like when you're projecting and going through your drivers, or even if you're looking at my projections and stuff, look at the guys who bare min are scoring like 42 points, 42 and higher. This is not a situation where I really want a ton of people in my line that are going to be certainly like mid 30s, not going to make the line. That's just how it's going to be. When we're building lines here and we're trying to figure out how the field is going to play out, realistically, each and every race, let's say we're using 35 as the cutoff. There's 13 drivers at Sonoma that scored over 35 points, or that scored at 35 points. When we look at Coda as well, including Brad Perez right at 35 points, that's only 13 drivers. And I'm also kind of going more into detail for this race because we have Atlanta this weekend, and that's, a crapshoot. And so I like the Truck Series race to be the place where I kind of throw more money into, or at least have not an edge, but feel like, hey, I might actually be able to predict something versus what happens at Atlanta. The other thing with Sonoma is yet again, we ended up having a lot of cautions towards the late end of this race. We had, Stuart Friesen get into it with the Benedetto. We have Haley Deegan wreck in turn 1 into the dirt. We have the wreck that happens at the very front with Stuart Friesen and who's driving the 30 car? Was it Fogelman? I think it was. They wrecked at the same spot Casey Kane wrecked at several years ago, where Casey Kane was like, we got to do something to these walls, man. We can't just be hitting concrete walls. And then we have the exact same incident again with no changes. So I'm glad they listened to Casey Kane. So I'm going to look at this race gets stupid at some point late in the race. And when it gets stupid, it's typically going to be the guys. Now, yes, we can't have it like Coda where the leaders wreck, but it's probably going to be in the middle of the pack where they wreck. And so hopefully your guys can at least be inside the top 15. Last thing I want to focus on is Coda, the average running position for the optimal lines. We had Zane Smith at 7. We had Nemechek at 12. We had Ben Rhodes at 9. We had Chandler Smith at 8. Lawless Allen at 19 and Tate Fogelman at 21. When we look at Sonoma, the average running position, Kyle Busch 3rd. Chandler Smith 11th, Tanner Gray 20th, Harrison Burton 19th, Jack Wood 23rd, Chase Purdy 17th. So bare minimum, another contingency or another thing you want to put in, or at least look at when you're building lines. Can these guys run in the top 23 at least? If it's a fringe, and ideally I would say top 20 drivers bare min. I know there's going to be some values that look good, and feel free to tweet at me or message me in Discord if you want to know things specifically on a certain guy. But you should know by now who can actually contend for a top 20 and who needs luck to go their way for them to get a top 20. You need to keep that in mind when you're building your lines this week for Sonoma. When we're looking this week at Mid-Ohio, when we look at the prices for Mid-Ohio, I appreciate you sticking with me 13 minutes in. We're barely talking about the race now. Consider joining the Patreon below at link in the description, the Brandon Cruz DFS Patreon link. I could have said that way better. Support me, support Pearce, support the fact that, hey, I know I'm not going to be here this weekend. Maybe just still throw some money on PayPal, or you can look at it a different way. And maybe this is your time to where, look, I only watch Cruz, I can't believe I just referred to myself as Cruz. I'm going to kill myself. I only watch this guy here. Maybe since he's not live, I'll check out some other content. I'll read some other articles, and this can go one of two directions. It can go one direction to where, wow, I really don't like the content that other people provide. They kind of mail it in. They don't really go into detail. They don't really talk about this stuff in this. And they might give me the picks. Sometimes their picks are wrong. I kind of like the detail that Brandon and Pearce give in their sheets and in the video. So, I'm actually going to stay more committed to Brandon and Pearce. Or you go, I like the picks. Maybe I do like these guys. I don't know who exactly you like. But maybe you do like them, and, you got to not diversify. But from you as a viewer, at least be aware of other content that's out there. Then make your judgment as if, hey, or am me and Pearce worth supporting or not? I think the answer is yes. Anyway, looking at Mid-Ohio, the pricing is incredibly soft this week. Nobody over $11,000. Nemechek, we've seen it before, and by looking at Sonoma this year, by looking at Coda this year, we can see that, look, 10K guys can easily work, and they don't necessarily need to be a 5-2, a 5-5, whatever type of value. If they end up being able to fit in the line and they can get right at 5x, sometimes at 5, sometimes at 4.9, depending on who they are. And this is mainly talking to Nemechek, Smith, and Rhodes. If they can get from 4.9 to 5.1, I think they should be considered in your lineups. I think all these guys are good plays. I would lean towards Zane Smith. I don't see a reason to play two of these guys unless one offers a ton of place differential. I'm not talking about 8. I'm not talking about 10. I'm talking about Nemechek blows a motor in practice, starts from the rear. Okay, then we can kind of start considering playing two 10K guys. But outside of that, when you're playing a 10K guy, and I think it should be Zane Smith, I'm not too concerned about his value. Especially if he does get into a situation where he scores closer to 55, 60 points, and we see him at a 5.4, 5.6, that's a situation where I think that can very easily happen. I would lean towards, unless we see this race being led by multiple people, one guy between Nemechek, Smith, Rhodes, and Hocevar being optimal. As I said, I would lean Zane Smith. Ty Majeski, probably going to be a guy who qualifies around 9th to 12th. At $10,000, I don't know if he can necessarily work his way in there. When we look at scoring as a whole, we're going to see clearly Ty Majeski is probably going to be a top 8 scorer in this race, but if he's one of those mid to low 40 drivers, he's not worth playing. Chandler Smith at 9.8. These are the type of plays. Certainly the 9K range is where I like to look at. We've seen Chandler Smith be optimal in both races this year. At Sonoma, Chandler Smith was 9.6. Also, I forgot to say this, on the line at Sonoma was 49.6, left $400 on the table. So the pricing isn't an issue for Chandler Smith. We've seen him be optimal at 9,600 with 48 points. We've seen him be optimal at Coda with 46 points. Now, granted, he was a bit cheaper, but the increase from 9.6 to 9.8 or the increase from 9.1 to 9.8 is not crazy. I like Chandler Smith in this race. I like him as a play right now. I like him at this track. Let me move this over here. I understand he hasn't been at this track, but when we look at how he's performing in these races, what he's doing in this car, I like it. Corey Heim, Park Clearman, Friesen, these are the guys that I want to see clear evidence in practice that they're a top 3 or 4 contender, or they have baked in place differential. I would not be shocked if we see Corey, Parker, Stuart Friesen, even Christian Eckes, and Tyler Ankrum all being in that. Well, they kind of qualified kind of poorly. They're all from like 9th to 15th. That's when you start considering these guys at $9,000. And when we're looking at other lines this year, yes, Sonoma got crazy. We end up having a lot of more expensive guys get caught up in wrecks and moved and wreck later, like Christian Eckes was ran into issues. Friesen, Alex Bone ran into issues at Sonoma. But I feel very comfortable playing 2 to 3 9K guys in this race. Justin Marks join in at $8,600. I'm going to assume, not even assume, like, well, I'm really putting on my thinking cap, but we're really digging deep here. Justin Marks is going to have a good truck. It's not going to be, oh my God, where did this truck? Oh, it's a GMS truck. Is it going to be good or it's going to be bad? This man is not going to just bring in some piece of junk equipment. It's going to be the same truck. And actually, when we look at this race, it's going to be the Nice machine, the 41 car. But it's not a Nice machine. It's a highly funded Trackhouse vehicle, just using the Dawson Cram 41 car, or the 41 number. Poor Cram, he got bought out. They these guys needed their rides, and they just gave the money to Dawson Cram, be like, can we at least use your number to get in? And now that we're like, okay, we actually enjoy racing the trucks, we're just not going to give that number back to you, Dawson. It was fun. We'll see you next year, maybe. Marks is in the 41, $8,600. I wish he would have ran better in the SRX race. He kind of looked like, why are we here at the SRX race? I'm not saying that that's an identical play or an identical move from the SRX to the Truck Series. However, I would like to see some more speed from him in the SRX series. So we'll look at practice data to have an idea of what we do with Justin. I would not be shocked if we see him start 18, gain some ownership because they're like, wow, he's the owner. He's won an Xfinity Series race at a road course, And then he kind of ends up running 10th, 8th, maybe, might not work. $8,600 can. Thank God he's priced around here. We'll see what happens. This is all going to be more based on practice speed here. End finger 84, kind of same thing here. I'm actually somewhat interested in DiBenedetto. When we look at Matty D, you know, and his super duper crazy career of being censored. Let me move this over. Oh, hold on, give me a moment. He's not looking bad, especially if he has place differential. We saw him run nearly half of his laps inside the top 15 at Coda, 59% inside the top 20 at Coda until he was involved in a wreck. When we look at Sonoma, I'm pretty sure he got in a wreck again. However, his running position was not bad, if I am remembering correctly. If I can find DiBenedetto here. So when we look at how DiBenedetto actually finished this race, and look, I understand you might be like, DiBenedetto, why are you bringing him up? 59% of his laps in the top 10 at Sonoma. 72% of his laps in the top 15 here. When was the last time we really went in and talked about DiBenedetto being good as a good play? I'm not shitting on him as a driver. You know, clearly we may have expected that Rackley Ware truck to bring him down a little, and he's showing that he should at least be in the truck series. He's showing that he's here competing for a playoff spot as well. I am somewhat interested in DiBenedetto. He seems like a very interesting tournament play, especially this weekend. As I kind of said, I want to put in more money for this race. I feel like DiBenedetto's might actually end up being overlooked here when he's surrounded by Enfinger, Casgrala, Crafton. 8-2 DiBenedetto might want to have some ownership to him. Maybe like 1 or 2 lines if you're building 5. If you're building 5 lines, play DiBenedetto in 1. I think that's certainly interesting play. I'm fine. I like Casgrala. Hopefully he can qualify with a little bit of place differential. If we have a chalk Casgrala, I'm perfectly fine with that. I'm very much concerned about Matt Crafton being stuck deep in the pack. We're seeing that he has been running into where are we at? When we look at Sonoma, just never had the speed. Rewatch the race, you can see that Crafton is not happy with the truck that he has at Sonoma. When we look at Coda, just not happy, not running good. Crafton is a guy who gained a ton of positions late in this race due to everybody racing stupid because he was a 20th place car. I am not liking Crafton here. I would much rather go to Kraus. I would much rather go to Connor. That's just where I'm at. Connor's going to be interesting. I want to see what they can bring in this truck. It's the same one that, not Moffitt, but the Arcafello. I just went blank on his name. The Holmes machine, Brett Holmes. I'm interested in that. Tanner Gray looks interesting to me. I like him, and I'll go through the guys that I like. I know I'm saying, this guy's interesting. I like this guy. I'll go through the list of guys that I actually want to consider once we get through here. I'm concerned about Austin Wayne Self running issues. I'm concerned about Taylor Gray running issues as well. Once we get to these people, we're seeing that these are probably going to be guys that line up with the place differential kind of fitting in with the second to last or last driver in your line. Chase Purdy, if he shows enough place differential, he's already showed once he can do it this year. Haley Deegan, if she shows it, I'm perfectly fine with that. Jack Wood, we've seen that he's going to most likely start in the back, and he can very easily run to somebody or survive. I like Jack Wood at $6,600. I think that's perfectly fine. Same thing with Howard. I don't think Lawless Allen is going to qualify as poorly as he has done in the past, but we will see. Timmy Hill's probably going to qualify mid-20s, probably going to kill the possibility of using him. Same thing with Dean Thompson. Spencer Boyd, I don't think he can carry the speed to get through this race unless things just get really stupid. Chris Wright, let's see what he does. Let's see what he brings. Blaine Perkins, not going to work. I don't see a reason to play KM. We have AO, now we got KM. I'm not even going to attempt to pronounce this one. Filippi, not going to do it for G2G, and Stefan for the second Reum truck. Not going to work for me. And so let's kind of go through the guys that I've identified, and then we can kind of tier them and see where they might all end up projecting here. So I'm actually going to do that real quick. Let's go ahead and do that together. All right, so now that I've kind of moved, my early interest, and the reason I'm doing this is since I'm not going to be live. I'm sure some people are going to be asking, why don't you always do the videos like this? Well, since I do the live shows now, I don't necessarily have to go into this in-depth on a video because these questions get answered, and I usually talk about this in the live shows as well. But I'm not going to be live this week, and try and cover as many things as I want. So I'm not saying this is the pool right now because I'm recording this on Thursday, around noon. Everything can change. A lot of people can get moved in, moved out. But I'm just saying based on how, and clearly we're probably going to need probably a 5K guy based on where he qualifies. But when we look at how this race can play out and who realistically can get in, and I'm kind of using this as a projection, an early projection of kind of where the interest is, where early chalk plays might end up being, where certain people might go and where they might not go. Let's actually kind of highlight people that I think actually have a realistic chance of being there. We're just going to do them green here. I think it's certainly probably one of Nemechek and Smith. Once we get to this point, I'm going to probably say, can't tell between here. It's going to depend on where they qualify. If they can not scrape any fast laps or laps let off and things like that. But this is the area that I like this area a lot. Between Justin Marks being an unknown commodity here. Come on. Justin Marks being very much a question mark of people not knowing what we're going to get from him. DeBenedetto showing that he's going to have top 15 speed, showing that I don't think people are going to want to play DeBenedetto unless he just offers a ton of place differential plays. He seems like a very interesting play here. We know that Kaz Gralla has the speed, just depends on what they can bring in the Young Motorsports truck. I think Tanner Gray is going to be fine. He'll either show the speed in practice or have place differential to get up there. Chase Purdy, probably going to be a place differential play if he doesn't qualify well, but guys that can finish in the top 20. This is kind of where my targets are right now, early in the week, or I guess midweek right now, a day away from practice. The race is on Saturday. This is kind of where I'm feeling we got to build lines at, kind of where I'm feeling where we want to go and where I think you should go. Probably one of these two guys here. I think Chandler Smith easily gets in. He's going to show the speed. He's done it before. And lastly, as I went through and I mentioned, kind of we have around, 16 to 14 guys scoring mid-30s and up, we're kind of here. We got what is this? We got 17 people here. This is how the pool is probably going to look. Maybe not necessarily these guys, but look, we're going to have like 36 trucks on the track. 12, 13, 15 of those are not even going to be viable for DFS. And so when you're actually here, and that's why I'm saying, the player pool is probably around 16 or so guys each and every week. Because realistically, these are people that I can see being and showing up and filling up, at least scoring in the top 20 of all people, or of all drivers. And then just determines where they line up in terms of point per dollar plays, in terms of, how big is the gap between first and second, and so on and so forth. But hopefully this gives you an idea of how I kind of want to go about Mid-Ohio this weekend, since I won't be live. If you do have any questions, feel free to tweet at me on Twitter. I can answer there on Saturday, or if you're in the Discord, I'll take care of you there. But thank you guys for watching. Hopefully this is somewhat helpful. And yeah, I will see you guys in the Atlanta video, recording now. So I will see you guys then.